Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And today, instead of to back or not to back, I'm taking a look at 14 of the longer delayed Kickstarters that I have in my queue. Now, this is not a public shaming thing at all. Kickstarter's a journey. It's not a destination. I'm fully aware of that. I do expect to get a product at the end of the day. Kickstarter is not a store, but yes, I expect a game at the end of it. But if it takes longer, it is what it is. Many of these companies, I'm big fans of the company in general. Many of the companies, I like their games. And if they take longer to get to me, I don't really mind, as long as I do get something at the end of the day. Now, whether you mind or not, different conversation entirely. But this is me just choosing 14 of the longest delayed Kickstarters that I have, some going back years and years and years, and in some cases, I would love to see some forward movement going forward. But before we do, let's go ahead and thank today's sponsor, BackerKit. And BackerKit sponsoring Borderlands, Mr. Torque's Arena of Badassery. This is a game with dozens of miniatures, hundreds and hundreds of cards, map tiles, a 48-page rulebook, tons and tons of content in the game. This is going to be ending on Kickstarter in like 2 days, so back now if you want to lock in all that extra content, and specifically you want to be focusing on the True Badass pledge or higher. If you're at the Arena Casualty pledge, you'll get a great game, but at higher pledges, you'll get a whole lot more content, all the unlocked stretch goals, of which there's an absolute ton of content as this campaign has continued to grow and continued to unlock more and more in Borderlands Arena of Badassery. And with that, let's go ahead and start off with the oldest campaign that I have, and I'm ordering these from just how far overdue they are. This was expected in October 2019. That's when they pledged, like, oh, we'll have the Everrain for October 2019, and it's not quite here. Far from it. The Everrain, in fact, from Gridlord Games, the Everrain is a world-ending Cthulhu-esque style game of adventuring on the high seas, and a lot of content here. A lot of content, a lot of cool stuff, a lot of expansions, and a whole lot of delays. And I believe Gridlord Games in general has had some delays on the other Kickstarters. They've also done Village Attacks, a great game that I played back in the day, have not had it for quite some time. They have another Kickstarter for that I believe is also delayed, but the Everrain has taken its sweet time. Now, this one, some of these games that we'll be going over, some of these 14 games, timestamps as usual and all that down below, some of these 14 games will have more of an explanation as to why or whatnot. But a game that was due in 2019, I can't even blame the pandemic. I can't do anything there. I mean, maybe the pandemic contributed to further delays, but this is long overdue by the time the world shut down and things got crazy. But that said, the Everrain, which is currently due in 2022 as of right now, the latest update they have has the game coming in, a production update, final sample sign-off, although this is back in September. There has not been an update in a few months. It would be great to see something. This is one of those that is old enough that I do question whether or not we'll get it. I think we will. I'm 97% sure that we're still safe, that I'm still going to get this game, which is great because I'd love to dive into this. I'd love to set this whole thing up and start seeing whether the delay was worth it. Because the only other game that I had that was this delayed was Wild Descent, and when Wild Descent showed up, it was 100% worth the wait, at least for myself, and Wild Descent is a game that I really enjoy, and these were somewhere in the same timeline as the Everrain. So the Everrain is one that I'm very interested. Game by Adam Smith, very interested in the game, very interested in seeing how it actually turns out and whether it was worth that wait. But for right now, this is by far the longest overdue campaign that I have. October 2019 was when this one was expected. The next one up from there is we have the Arena of the Contest, Tanares Adventures more specifically. This one's in April 2020, so a full 6 months, 7 months after the Everrain in terms of the expected date. And this one's also a little bit more complicated to go into because Tanares Adventures ran a campaign, which is both a relaunch for all the Arena content. It was also a launch for the Dragon Collection, which they had, and then it was a launch for Tanares Adventures itself, which is basically the Arena ecosystem, but focusing far more heavily on the cooperative aspects of that system, trying to dive more heavily into that arena. And overall, Arena of the Contest, Tanares Adventures has delivered Wave 1 of the content, which basically consists of arena content for those who missed it, as well as the Dragon Collection, but the main bulk of the content is not yet out. Now, where things get complicated on Tanares Adventures, where things tend to get a little bit, okay, well, what's the story now, is they've since run the RPG Collection. And to a certain extent, they're kind of intermingling different content from those collections together, so you can get some stuff from either or both or whatever it is, and you can merge things in the PM, so it does leave things a little confused. If you can go through the comments, you can see a lot of questions and answers around what's the story, how does this work, what is the due date of this campaign that had a Wave 1, a Wave 2, and now a Wave 3 with another campaign that's mixed in with the second campaign, so it leads to a lot of confusion. I'm not worried about the general delivery of this. In general, Dragori Games is a fantastic company. They delivered a lot of content. They've also focused very heavily on their one line of games on Arena the Contest. They've branched out into different versions of those games, into Arena, into Tanares, and into the RPG, but they are very heavily focusing on the world of Tanares, as opposed to branching out into multiple other campaigns. Not that there's a pro or con around that, just they're very dedicated to this product line, to this game line. That said, as far as the current delivery estimate, currently, we are looking at early mid 2022 for you to get Wave 2 of Tanares Adventures, which is great because, once again, I foolishly lumped all my stuff into one wave, so I'm getting the Dragon Collection along with the rest of it in Wave 2, because I backed this for all the new content. I already had Arena the Contest, and I'm eagerly anticipating the new heroes, the new content, the new dragons, the cooperative stuff, so that I can once again have an excuse to dive back into the world of Tanares Adventures. Next up, we have Divinity Original Sin. This is a game that has gotten a massive rework, 10,000 backers, 1.8 million, and expected in October 2020. And again, this one's more of a, not again, and Tanares Adventures was a bit of a split wave, so some of it has delivered, the rest was still waiting on. But in terms of Divinity Original Sin, October 2020 was the expected date, and as of right now, we're looking at late 2022, meaning, in other words, this is currently expected to be 2 years overdue. That's what they're currently expecting, I think quarter 4 2022, if I recall correctly from the various updates. So 2 years late, and they made it very clear, but we're still willing to push it off later if need be, in order to ensure that the game is the level that we want it to be at, which is both good and bad news. It's good news in the sense that I'm happy they want the game to hit a certain standard. It's bad news because when someone starts off an update with making it clear, hey, it might be delayed even further, it's kind of setting the groundwork for a potential delay if need be. Not necessarily with intent, but rather with the understanding that, hey, this is what we're hoping for right now, but if things change, we want to be very clear. This is a tentative date as of right now. My guess is we're probably looking at early 2023 for Divinity Original Sin. Like I said already a few times now, as long as they actually deliver a quality game, I don't really care. Now, to be fair, I guess, let's just talk about it. In some of the updates, they've drastically rehauled the game system, even to the point that I believe this original board is completely gone and turned into a book instead. So while they had a promise, a vision, or whatever it is, they have completely changed some aspects of that. They've gone through complete reworkings of the art of the game. So the art you saw in the campaign, they've upgraded, and in my opinion, it is an upgrade. I like the newer art a lot more, so I'm happy with whatever delay that led to. They're getting rid of the circular board, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on this one, but I believe they're getting rid of the board and replacing it with a book. I'm kind of mixed on that one because I'm curious what the end game is like. One of the things that appealed to me about Divinity is the fact that it very much felt different than many other games in this genre, and maybe drifting a little bit more towards other games that we're more used to in this genre, although it very much depends on the book and how that system gets implemented. So a lot of content here, a lot of changes, a lot of delays, so we'll see how things go. But overall, again, as long as they deliver something that looks like a decent game, I'm fine with those delays. I just want a product at the end of it, and they're taking the time. I know they brought on a lot of writing talent in a recent update, so they're definitely bringing on some more. I think Divinity Original Sin was the one. There's lots of campaigns there, so some of them may have been mixed up here. But I believe Divinity. Let's go check the updates. I'm 90% certain that they brought on here we go. Yeah, they brought on some writing talent. So yeah, that's Divinity Original Sin. Hoping this one will be good and worth the wait, but the wait is definitely going to be there. Again, this is likely coming in at early 2023, if I'm, guessing correctly. Moving on, we have Trudvang Legends, another game from CMON. This is from CMON. This is due December 2020, and we are not looking at, we're looking currently, it depends on everything, and it could be more delays, of course, but we're currently looking at mid to late 2022. You see, that's how far we are. Mid to late 2022 as far as delivery. Now, CMON, like all companies out there, generally has deliveries to their dates. In general, Kickstarter gives an estimate, and the estimate is like, hey, we're expecting it now, and most people who back multiple Kickstarters, like myself, already know that whatever that date is, add on 6 months, that's your actual estimate. And even those 6 months could be further out. And in this case, we're very much looking at being those 6 months plus another year on top of those 6 months as far as potential delivery. Now, Trudvang did go through massive reworks. I talked about this in multiple updates. Who knows how long ago as far as updating the people, the delays, the journey this game was going through. Trudvang Legends had a legend system. This is, I believe, Eric Lang and Michael Chanel And the legend system of the game is something that pulled me in. The idea of the board kind of remembering how things go, which is not a new concept, but the way they did it is a way that you kind of tuck cards into the board. So it makes it easy to just fold up the board and continue from wherever you left off, with the board state changing as you go through this campaign. I know a lot of people who tried it at the actual convention when they first were demoing this game way back before COVID, everything. A lot of people who were excited based on playing the game. But then from there, whatever people tried that they were excited about, whatever happened internally, I don't know exactly, but the game went through massive reworkings where they're like, hey, some parts we really like, other parts we're not quite happy with, and so we're going to completely change many aspects of the game, going to go through a massive overhaul, which has led to the various delays. Like I said already, CMON in general, like all campaigns, has delays, but I think this might be the longest delayed CMON Kickstarter that I've personally backed. As far as a year and a half overdue past the date, that is quite some time, to the point that, do we have another, I don't even think we don't have another date, we don't have another campaign. I thought we might have another CMON campaign today, but we don't. We also almost had Massive Darkness, but that's not quite delayed enough for me to include it in this list. But either way, that's Trudvang Legends. I'm very optimistic about how this game will turn out. I'm very optimistic that it'll be a game that I like. CMON games in general, I liked most of their games. I don't necessarily keep all, but I have liked and enjoyed most of their games. I'm hoping Trudvang Legends is no exception. I don't mind the delays as long as, once again, they deliver. Next up, we have Oathsworn, Into the Deepwood, and this one is almost ready, although they are working on Oathsworn 2 as well. So I don't know if Oathsworn 2, I don't know enough about Oathsworn 2 just yet, but effectively Oathsworn Into the Deepwood, this was supposed to be delivered in, I believe again, December of 2020. Yep, December of 2020. Now this went through a bunch of delays again. Some of these are related to the pandemic, some of these just related to the amount of content of the game. I mean, they got 11,000 backers and $2 million. That is a big, ambitious project that they have, and this one's basically ready to deliver. So as far as the dates, yes, it's overdue, yes, it's a year late, but it's basically ready to deliver. I believe we're currently looking at Q1 2022. That's at this point we're drifting into the pandemic and the delays and the boats and the price of freight and all that stuff over there. But this is ready to deliver. You should expect to see it early 2022 if all things go well. The game is, I believe, basically produced and all done in that sense, and they are already planning their next Kickstarter, which I don't know if it's a sequel or next. I don't know exact details. I know Oathsworn 2 is coming. I haven't fully dived into the details of it just yet, but I know I've talked to them. I know something more is coming for the campaign and they're further expanding the universe, but I believe they want you to have your games first, so we'll see. We'll go into that. But either way, Oathsworn Into the Deepwood is an ambitious boss battling system. This is a game where you have a boss battler, you have your boss that you're trying to hunt down, a variety of bosses, all in these crates. You have your heroes have swappable weapons, swappable arms. It's a game that I backed based on the promise of the game. I had a chance to try it later on TTS and really enjoyed it. It has an interesting card moving mechanism system and a ton of intricate heroes as far as the abilities and trying to manage your flow of time, almost your flow of abilities around them. And then each hero feels like their own drastically different puzzle as you try to figure out, and has a push your luck system as far as the dice rolling that really lets you kind of try to push for whatever it is you need to get done, but at the cost of abject failure. A lot of fun things going on, and then you hack off the limbs of the various bosses and deal with them as you need to as you go through it. A lot to be excited for here, a lot to look forward to, but also, you know, a year delayed. Next up, we have Arkeis. This is one that is, I believe, another December 2020 goal as far as when they're supposed to launch. This is from Ankama Board Games, and this one has also gone through major delays. Major delays on this one. I don't even know where we're up to as far as an actual estimated delivery. I don't believe I saw an estimated delivery as far as where we are right now. But this one looked very intriguing. Antoine Bazar, Corentin Lebut, Ludovic Mablanc, and Theo Riviere. I hope I'm saying some of those names correctly. Antoine Baza, I believe I got right. The rest I don't know. But Arkeis is a game that I almost didn't back. But throughout the campaign, they kept pulling me in with different aspects. The miniatures and art always looked fantastic. Antoine Baza, in general, I'm always interested in anything that he does. But the miniatures looked fantastic, and the game just looked interesting and compelling. And I was wondering where it would actually end up for me. It's a legacy aspect, legacy elements to it, a little bit of a dungeon crawl. Seemed like a good hybrid as far as light and the depth the game would bring. But this one has taken its time. This one has certainly been quite some time as far as Kickstarter development goes. I don't know, again, like I said already, I don't know how far delayed this is. I don't know how far out we are from an actual delivery. The latest updates have not seemed to give me anything concrete as far as when we should actually expect the game over here. A November update, let's see if we have anything here. The English side's all complete and locked, proof of sample, print elements. We are looking at anything specific. When will I receive my awards then? We're looking at push back to a later date in 2022. So a later date in 2022, nothing specific as far as when it's coming. Again, guess late Q2 or Q3 2022. It's still one that I'm very interested in. it's still one that looks incredibly cool and looks different enough, and the miniatures look amazing, and I probably should stop focusing on the miniatures because the miniatures look amazing, but yes, the miniatures do look amazing. I'm curious how the final game turns out. I'm curious whether it will be worth the wait. That's usually the biggest problem with these delays. I don't actually care about the delays themselves, but the delays start setting expectations in motion. The fact that, well, if it's this late, I want it to be at least this good. And so a game that would have been mediocre and I would have just moved on from and not lost any sleep over suddenly becomes, oh, you're 2 years late for a mediocre game. Congratulations. Thanks so much for making me wait for nothing. And so that's where like it's a little tricky. Hopefully that isn't the case with any of these 14 games, but statistically speaking, some of them will be mediocre games, at least mediocre for myself. Next up, we have Blacklist Miniatures Fantasy Series 1. Now, this one's gone through a bit of a tricky one because Blacklist is a company that I like. Blacklist. I've worked with Blacklist. I'm covering Mega Man, which I really like from them. But despite me liking them, and despite me liking their games and all that, they have had a lot of Kickstarter delays. A lot of Kickstarter issues as far as general just getting things to be delivered. My first experience with these delays was back in the Aftershock campaign when there were huge delays for Street Masters Aftershock. Lots of people just waiting to get their pledge. And then over here, we have Fantasy Series 1 that has also been severely delayed. Now, this is December 2020. Again, lots of December 2020 expectations over here that are not being met. 16,000 backers, over $1 million, and this started the start of their fantasy series. And many people, to be clear, have gotten their games for this game. Not really a game, it's a fantasy series miniatures. Many people have gotten the miniatures, but many people have not. I believe all US backers have not yet gotten the miniatures. These ships, I believe, have finally landed and dropped off the games, but they're not yet being shipped out yet. I expect to see them. I mean, the product's all there. I expect that we'll see this. I'm not worried about anything like that. I'm not worried about whether or not it will happen. I'm just worried about when it will happen. So I'm looking forward to this. I will probably be selling these because I shouldn't have backed these to begin with. I don't typically get games. I don't typically get miniatures without games. There are a few times I make an exception, and almost always I end up regretting it. As far as the miniatures over here, part of what let me justify it was, hey, but at least there'll be a game behind it. And that game just didn't seem like my kind of game. It seemed like more like a miniatures game as opposed to a board game with miniatures, which is more the genre I tend to dabble in. And so the expectation that I'll use these is kind of gone. I'll probably box them. I'll probably unbox them, go through them, see if there's anything I can use. I can't even say I'll use them for Gloomhaven at this point, which is another lie I told myself back when I got it, because there's a Gloomhaven miniatures series coming out now, and so apparently that's, if you want Gloomhaven miniatures, just get Gloomhaven miniatures. Plus, of course, in my case, I said I don't want Gloomhaven miniatures because I think it'll add to the setup and teardown issue with the game, so I'm not even interested in that. So all the excuses and justifications I gave myself are out the window. The good news is it was a fantastic price for anyone who backed the original Kickstarter, and so from that sense, I should have no problem reselling these and getting my money back. So no regrets here, just a game just a miniatures line I probably will not end up keeping. Next up, we have the Hunters AD 2114, and I debated not including this one on the list because, first of all, as far as date, February 2021. So February 2021, and then combined with the fact that right now people are starting to receive the game. Even right now, US backers left, right, and center are getting tracking numbers. Many still have not, myself included, but we should get them soon. And so a 8-month delay is not even that bad, all things considered, for a game that's almost ready to deliver. And if the fates were slightly different, I'd actually have this on my table right now and it wouldn't be in the list. That said, I don't, so I am including it in this list. But the Hunters AD 2114, another ambitious game that I do not think I'll have time for. Now, I hope to actually give it a shot before I get rid of it, but I'm just getting bogged down by campaign games. And the Hunters was always one that was rated incredibly well, but I only ever backed it not because of my personal interest, but because enough people were like, this game's amazing, Alex, you have to get it, and I gave in to peer pressure, which you should not do, I should not do, I shouldn't have done. But I do want to give this a shot. It might depend on how long the rulebook is and how complicated it is to dive into it, but I do want to give it a shot to see what the promise or potential of this game is all about. Is there a reason why so many people are passionately interested in the game? I mean, the game looks great. Visually, thematically, all those elements are hitting the right notes, I guess, the right notes, but the right keys, the right something. It's hitting the right something. But as far as I'm just overloaded with campaign games, and I have to pick and choose which ones will hit the table, which ones I'll try to attempt to give a shot. Currently still going through Jaws of the Lion, not yet finished that. Heavily, what's the one I want to start diving into? I want to start diving into Marvel Dice Throne, not Marvel Dice Throne, Dice Throne Adventures, and then plus a bunch of other games. What are the other ones? I want to pull up Machina Arcana, go through it, not really a campaign game. There's so many games I want to table, and it's a question of limited time, especially when it comes time to campaign games. So even if I do get rid of this, don't take it as a hit against against the game. Even if I do get rid of it without playing it, don't take it against a hit against the game. Just take it as the casualty of someone who backs too many games, hoping that next year he'll have time. Even though they were nice enough to give me an extra 8 months, an extra 10 months, in terms of giving me 10 months more to clear things out of my backlog, and I still am not ready for this one. Next up, we have Stormsunder, Heirs of Ruin. Now, you have to ignore the March 2022 delivery date. That was supposed to be for Wave 2. Stormsunder, Heirs of Ruin was supposed to have, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was May 2021 as far as the delivery date. That's for the Wave 1 content. And the Wave 1 content is not hitting until at this point, mid to late 2022 is when we'll see the Wave 1 content. At this point, the game, Stormsunder, is 12 to 18 months behind, and I expect that to further expand outwards. Like I said already, Wild Ascent almost hit this list, except for the fact that it actually delivered, and it has hit expectations. I'm thrilled with Wild Ascent. And Stormsunder, more so than anything else on this list, I am the least concerned with. Yes, there will be delays. Yes, you can still back it now if you want to. You can update all the stuff in the Pledge Manager. You can update, you can add Stormrush. You can do whatever you want as far as this game and trying to see where it fits for you, or adding stuff, or whatever it is you want to do. But I'm less concerned because of a few things. First of all, I've now played Wild Ascent and love it. It was absolutely worth the wait. I have zero concerns there. Secondly, I believe King of Average, if I'm not mistaken, he played Wild Ascent and Stormsunder. I've only played Wild Ascent, and he likes Stormsunder so much that he thinks Wild Ascent is just not worth it comparatively speaking to Stormsunder. And so a game that holds that level of interest from him, a game that holds that level of attention, is one that, when you combine reviewers who have been able to get their hands in it and try it and see if it holds up, combined with the miniature production quality of Lazy Squire Games, combined with all that stuff, the world building, the writing of Wild Ascent, Levon Rising, and the world building that was in that game, I am very, very, very excited for Stormsunder. Incredibly excited. And the amount of miniatures and cards and tokens and tiles and everything you got for the price point was absolutely insane, comparatively speaking, to anything else you can get your hands on, with the possible exception of Madara, like all the Wave 3 content, all that. And even then, I don't think so. Even then, I think Stormsunder has much more in the way of miniatures and all that. Not that miniatures make a game. Constant reminder to myself and to you, miniatures do not make a good game, but they certainly make for a tempting game. So I'm not concerned about Stormsunder. I expect there will be a 2023 delivery date as far as, I don't know, Wave 1, maybe late 2022. I just don't know. I don't know when it will show up or not. I expect delays. At this point, Lazy Squire has two things for me. They have my undivided attention for any single campaign they ever put out. They also have the expectation for me that those campaigns will be late until they are proven otherwise. For myself, that's not a problem. It's just an awareness thing. For other people, it may well be a problem. As much as I like Lazy Squire Games, they certainly do have an uphill battle as far as convincing people that, hey, when we tell you this is when you'll get your game, this is when you'll get your game. All campaigns are late. So far, Lazy Squire Games are later. That's Stormsunder. Next up, we have Guards of Atlantis Tabletop MOBA. I believe we're looking at an early 2022 delivery date for this one. This is expected in May 2021 as well. So far, again, another 10 months so behind. Not significant, but certainly more. Again, my line in the sand usually is that 6-month number. Whatever that you tell me your campaign will deliver at, if you're 6 months later than that, I don't even think twice. Once you move past the 6 months, we move into what I consider late, but late's all kinds of different things. And now we've drifted into, again, pandemic territory where people can start saying, oh, well, COVID and this and freight and all those things. You start drifting more into those timelines later on in this video with Guards of Atlantis. Now this one, I guess I just said a second ago that Stormsunder I'm not at all concerned about. I take that back. There's a few I'm not concerned about. I'm not concerned about Tanares. I'm not concerned about Oathsworn because I've played it. I'm not concerned about Blacklist miniatures because they're miniatures. I'm not worried about the game behind it. I'm not concerned about Stormsunder. And I'm also not concerned about Guards of Atlantis 2 because Guards of Atlantis 2 is basically Guards of Atlantis but better. That's what we have here. We have Guards of Atlantis and then we have Guards of Atlantis the better version, the more streamlined version, taking out balance issues that were there. This is from Wolf Designer, a fantastic company in general. The games are very solid, although Guards of Atlantis is easily my favorite game from their games. I like the first one quite a bit. The second one basically takes a lot of balance issues and also adds more heroes and more content for the game. Yes, potentially introducing more balancing issues, but I also know that one of the upsides of the pandemic is they've been heavily taking advantage of all the online play that's been going on to run test after test after test, just continuously. This game has gotten a ton of play. Guards of Atlantis 2, while it does not exist on my table, it does not exist on your table, it has gotten tons and tons of play again and again and again from hundreds and hundreds of people, and so I'm not that worried about the balance issues. I'm not that worried about the gameplay issues. I just want this to be on my table because I know how good a game it is. and I want to play the new version of it. Guardians of Atlantis is fantastic. It's a MOBA game. It's a MOBA style gameplay where you have your heroes and you have minions. You're trying to hit those minions and take them down and kill them and move. Really, that's not what you're trying to do. That's kind of a side effect of what you're trying to do. Ultimately, you're trying to push the lane and win the game. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a very interesting, fast-moving take on the MOBA genre. The way you level up your heroes, the way you have these branching pathways of leveling up your heroes. Every time you choose a card, you choose one that gives you an attribute, one that gives you an ability, gives you a lot of choice as far as how your heroes develop, and then just a ton of replayability because of the sheer amount of heroes and the combination of heroes in any one team. I really enjoyed, hey, I didn't know the Hunger Gamer covered this one. I really enjoyed Guards of Atlantis and am looking, hey, look at this, why I'm back in it, there I am. I really enjoyed Guards of Atlantis and am heavily looking forward to, well, it showing up on my table. Next up, we have Wonderland's War. Wonderland's War from Druid City Games. This was a March 2021 delivery date. That means I also ordered things wrong. I put May before March. March 2021 delivery date. So again, we're looking at roughly a year out. This is another one. I believe the last update has that they secured freight for this one, and you should be expecting it in early 2022 if I'm not mistaken. This is from Druid City Games, Skybound Entertainment. This is one that I'm very much looking forward to. Area control, plus the bag building of Quacks of Quedlinburg, combined with a very interesting game that could be a complete and total bust, and I'm prepared for that. Trust me, I am. I've said this every single time I've talked about the game. I've talked about how the abilities compel me, the bag building combined with area control compels me, the art, the visuals, the miniatures, all of that crazily compels me. But at the end of the day, they're also doing something different, and so I don't know if it'll be a win for me or if it'll be a major bust. I have no idea. I'm not too concerned. Either way, it is what it is at this point. But it's a game that, at the very least, I applaud them for being different. I applaud them for trying something different, something new. It may end up that the push your luck element of bag building of Quacks of Quedlinburg is not something you want to combine into an area control strategy game. It could be. Or it could be that it lends itself to fantastic gameplay elements that you wouldn't get from any other game experience. I like area control. I like Quacks of Quedlinburg. Whether the two combine into a single game, whether it works for me, I don't yet know. Why I backed Wonderland's War is one of the first videos I did on the channel. I think after I did Marvel United and it took off as a Kickstarter focused video, I was focusing on other Kickstarter games, including Wonderland's War. This is like the second or third, Wonderland's War and why I'm backing it. And I went into all that stuff. I am intrigued, I am compelled, I am waiting for this one to actually show up so that I can see whether it lives up to expectations or not, and that's Wonderland's War. Next up, we have Monumental, reprint, new expansion, African Empires. This is a game that I almost didn't back. I've gone back and forth on Monumental. I love the game, but it doesn't hit the table often, both because of the table size, plus the game length, especially if you're playing at higher player counts. It's a game that I like the 3-player game the best in theory, but that's harder to table because of how long it takes, so I end up playing it primarily at 2 players. I haven't played it solo. I really should dive into it solo and see if it works out well for me. I've heard good things from Jeremy Howard, but this is the African Empires expansion that once I decided I was keeping Monumental, I dove into the African Empires expansion, all in, getting all the stuff. I believe most stuff for the game is done. They're still waiting on Titan production and all that. This is another one that you're looking at mid-2022 from an expected delivery date of April 2021. So it's late. It's not crazily late, but it's certainly late. It's one that I'm waiting on. Like many on this list, like 5 or 6 on this list that I'm not concerned about the game quality, I already know the game that Monumental is. Whether this one works for me or not, I don't know. Whether the expansion fixes some issues for me or not. Whether they streamline it. They had simultaneous play that they added in the expansion specifically to try to mitigate the game length at higher player counts. And I'm curious whether it works for me or not. At the end of the day, gorgeous production value, incredible game, and more expansion content for a game I really enjoy has me just, waiting for Monumental to show up on my doorstep. Next up, we have the Age of Atlantis from Eldorado Games. And this one does fall into the category more of one that I don't know if it's for me or not. I've heard good things from the many people who playtested this game. This is another one that saw a lot of online play, expected in June 2021, and we're looking at early 2022 again. But Age of Atlantis should be coming shortly from Eldorado Games. I have had a chance to play Eldorado's newest game over on GameFound, Legend Academy, and I know that one is fantastic for me. And I also know from people who've played both the Age of Atlantis and Legend Academy, I know many people who prefer the Age of Atlantis. Some of that might just come down to personal preference. I don't yet know until I play both. But at the end of the day, I know that a lot of people got their hands on Age of Atlantis and really, really enjoyed it. Now, the potential downside, is both for Legend Academy and Age of Atlantis, consistent feedback across the board has been, really great game, also needs to be heavily playtested to ensure that the balance is there, to ensure that the multiple pathways to victories are correctly there, to ensure that it's not just, hey, this is a little broken one way or the other. And so I don't know where the final game ends up. I had the same problem with Legend Academy. Legend Academy is absolutely one of the best prototypes I've played in 2020. 2021. That's the one, 2021. But at the end of the day, it's one that also had a lot of broken combinations that I know they're still tweaking and iterating upon as they went through the Kickstarter, as they went through the Game Found, and so I'm still very excited for it. No matter how it shows up, no matter how it ends up, I'm excited for Legend Academy. But Age of Atlantis, I didn't have a chance of playing yet. All I know is some people who played it, that they liked it quite a bit. The question is where the final game ends up and what it's like. I'm very excited for this one. I'm looking forward to the sheer amount of tech and the branching pathways and all that the game provides. This one, like I said already, expected currently in early 2022. And lastly on the list, we have Hell the Last Saga. If I had to guess the game that I am the least excited about, well, not a guess. I know the game I'm least excited about. If I had to guess the game that is least likely to hold my attention, it is likely Hell the Last Saga. Even more so than this one over here, the Hunters. Even more so than the Hunters. Because Hell the Last Saga is a game that the only reason I backed it is because of the fact that I know Mythic games hold their value, and while I was interested in it, I wasn't certain at all. But a game that has both tons of miniatures, again, Alex, miniatures do not make a game. But a game that has tons of miniatures, a game that will hold its value, a game that had a great price point for the all-in. It was a fairly cheap all-in on this one. I didn't even go all-in. I got the base game plus some extras, but a lot of the all-in stuff here was extra stuff that isn't even related to the game, and I didn't need all that stuff. So if I recall correctly, I got the base plus 1 or 2 extras, whatever it was, but it's one that I backed this game again because I know people who played the game. I know people who tried the game, and I know people who had nothing but positive things to say after having tried the game. But for me, it just looked like a lot of decision space, a lot of story-driven stuff with not a lot of heavy mechanics around a wasteland, whatever it is. It didn't look visually appealing. The miniatures looked great, the art looked great, the board did not look great. So for me, there were enough aspects here that pulled me in, and enough testimonials from people who played it that I was very compelled by it, but it wasn't one that it's not one that I'm certain is for me at all. Now, I plan on trying it, just like the Hunter's idea. I plan on diving into this one. I plan on seeing whether this gives me a journey, a story, something that pulls me in enough to see if there's a reason. If I sit there and I'm like, oh wow, I see exactly why so-and-so loved the game. Because if I do see that, then you can bet I'll be keeping it. At the end of the day, the price point for the amount of content you got on Hell the Last Saga is incredible. I know they've been absolutely taking their time in this one, primarily for things like proofreading, for things like ensuring that the story, the sheer amount of content. I mean, Mythic Games has had a troubled history as far as the quality control on their rule books or things like that, and so a heavy narrative game is potentially victim to that kind of things. Now, I believe they delivered with Solomon Kane, although Solomon Kane also had huge delays, potentially for the same reason. So I'm not worried about the end product. As long as they spend their time proofreading all that stuff, then great. I'm fine with the delays. I don't care about the delays for heavy proofreading, heavy testing, heavy ensuring that everything is what you get, from rules to narrative to all that stuff, to ensure that everything flows properly. If you want to take your time doing that, that is fine with me. Whether or not the game's for me, I just don't know. This is on Kickstarter when pandemic was starting to have an impact on the way board games were shown. This was doing that 4 or 5 month phase in which all the preview content you saw online for Kickstarters was basically playing on a TTS, which didn't do anyone any favors because it just wasn't the optimal way to show a game. It still isn't. It is still a reluctant sacrifice that we do because sometimes it's just the way we get content into our hands. But at the end of the day, I am intrigued by Hell the Last Saga. Whether it's for me or not, I do not yet know, but I'm certainly intrigued by it. And these are the 14 Kickstarters that are the oldest, the most delayed, going back from the Everrain, which is, at this point, we're looking at a 3-year delay for the Everrain, and other games, well, maybe a 3, maybe 2.5, depends on exactly where we are, but 2.5 years, not from when the Kickstarter ran, but 2.5 years from when they said the Kickstarter will deliver. At the end of the day, I only judge delays based on when you said the game is going to show up. And like I said multiple times throughout this video, as long as you do deliver, I don't really care. I am in the fortunate position of having yet to have a Kickstarter flake out. Yet to have a Kickstarter that didn't deliver. Yet to have a project creator that ran away with my money. I have yet to have that happen. But I'm absolutely victim to it. While I can sit there and say, well, these ones are less likely, and these ones are less likely, and these are better backed because of X, Y, and Z, there are campaigns. I mean, Sweet Mess is going to be a great example. Sweet Mess is a campaign that I would have not seen enough flags to say, hey, you should be paying attention to this one and not backing it. I would have been like, oh yeah, totally, this will hold its value, blah, blah, blah. I actually don't know, I haven't looked into the campaign, but I would have been pulled in by it. Now, fortunately, Sweet Mess is being rescued by the people who did Endless Winter, who I'm blanking on their name. Fantasia Games. Fantasia Games is rescuing Sweet Mess, so that's an example of a campaign that went off the rails and almost got lost, but did get rescued. But at the end of the day, other campaigns don't get rescued. Sometimes delays turn into you're not getting your game. And while I've yet to see that happen, that always is the risk, especially once you start crossing past a year delayed, past 18 months delayed, and past 2 years delayed. Do I think that will happen with any of these? I currently don't. But maybe that's just the optimist in me. Time, at the end of the day, will tell. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have a good one.